Today on Building the Broncos, Carl and Nick discuss who are the most important/core players for the Denver Broncos moving forward. This is Building the Broncos.
Welcome to Building the Broncos with your hosts, Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler.
Hello there, Broncos country, and it is once again time for another episode of Building the Broncos. I am your host, Carl Dumler, and with me, as always, I have my co-host and good friend, Nick Kendell. Nick, man, how was it without me last week?
It was interesting. We had Lance on, and we actually had some recording issues. He told me as the computer knowledge of a 2-year-old, so did the best I could on my end. I guess I'm blessed when I have you on here that I don't have to explain too much computer stuff. I'm not really a super computer guy either. I got my statistical analysis, but Lance was good. It was fun to have him on, but I mean, you're my boy, Blue. Carl, I love you. It's not even a question. I think listeners know that. So glad to have you on. And then I'm going to be parting ways here, but welcome back to the United States. Happy post 4th of July, and God bless America.
Yeah. Do you still have all 10 fingers?
You know what? I like fireworks, but I'm not a big fan of fireworks. I think like once you're past the kid stage, yeah, and I don't know. It's not such a big thing. I actually enjoy the barbecue and the drinking good alcohol portion of 4th of July and the freedom part more than the fireworks.
There you go. Yeah, ever since I had a kid, it hasn't been quite the same. When you have a 3-year-old chasing after you and you're like, oh, yeah, I probably shouldn't light those big ones off.
Yeah.
Things kind of calmed down a little bit. So I was fine with the poppers and sparklers and smoke bombs this year.
Yeah. It's also been so dry. I feel like I'm always just worried to death that it's going to be, set off some monstrous forest fire or something. Like Colorado right now is on the precipice of like one of the largest forest fires in their recorded state history, aren't they?
Oh man. Yeah, there's something going on with that. It's pretty bad. No, we had flood warnings here last night, so
oh man,
we didn't have to worry about that.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I got through the whole making things go boom phase in high school. Like, I don't know if when you're in Iowa, I guess sometimes you kind of do stupid stuff out in a cornfield, but we made like works bombs. I don't know if you ever heard of that. I don't want to give people the recipe over the podcast, but it's
let's see how quick we get shut down here.
Yeah, it definitely makes a big boom. Gatorade bottles are better because the hard plastic. Yeah, but that was the peak of my bomb technician days. So now I'm a little bit more reserved. I think I've focused that from making stuff like that, making things go boom, to enjoying a good beer and a good burger.
There you go. Yeah, that's not a bad substitution there.
I'll take it.
Yeah. All right. Well, our fans, I want you to let you know that Building the Broncos is focused on all things pertain to your Denver Broncos, especially as it relates to the NFL draft, the offseason, and the building of the team. With Nick and myself being armchair GMs, we'll be bringing you fresh insight and analysis each and every week in every single episode, from scouting reports, player values, scheme, and personnel fits, and of course, just some general football-related banter. You can follow myself on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH, as well as follow Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. Be sure to tweet us any questions or opinions you have, because we live for talking Bronco football. You can also follow the podcast Twitter account at HuddleUpPod, and make sure you check out ours and our co-writers' written content at milehighhuddle.com, a part of 24/7 Sports, an affiliate of the CBS Sports Digital Network. We know you listeners are as football, draft, and Bronco crazy as we are, so please give us a click and subscribe to us on iTunes as well as Stitcher. And don't forget to share us on Facebook and Twitter. We wouldn't be here today without you listeners, so as a call to action, please go and take the time to go to iTunes or Spreaker and rate and subscribe, and let your voices be heard on how you enjoy our show. Now, before we get to the nuts and bolts of this episode, we really do want to say thank you to our great sponsor, Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Again, that's www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Now, this last week, like Nick said, I was gone for a little trip out of the country, and Audible books were amazing. I think I made it through more books in the last week than the last couple of months combined. And, of course, had to get a little football knowledge in there. So make sure to check out Audible. Great thing to have. You definitely increase your knowledge. And, hey, maybe you can challenge Nick and I on some of our football knowledge and say, hey, Bill Parcells said this, and you guys are saying the opposite, and take us on that way. We'd love that. But now on to the actual episode. We want to take on the task today of trying to point to players that absolutely need to be the core of this team moving forward. And that starts with this season. These are players that don't get that year off or that year to develop. I mean, they got a little bit of development time, but it's still – these are the guys moving forward that the Broncos absolutely need. If they're going to have a Super Bowl kind of team, these are those core players. Now, 2015, the Broncos had some of the best veteran core team in, I'd say the last 5-6 years for the NFL. I mean, when you got Peyton Manning as your team captain, DeMarcus Ware leading your defense, of course, Von Miller on there, Aqib Talib, Chris Harris, TJ Ward, DT, I would throw Trevathan in on there. I mean, that was just a team loaded with core players that were also great at leadership. Wouldn't you agree, Nick?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And also, we're sorry to take a left turn here, but welcome back to the country. How was Haiti? We talked about the 4th, but man, you got to tell the listeners a little bit of how Haiti was.
All right. Well, I live in very, very dry country. We're just right above desert. And Haiti is 95 degrees with 100% humidity. So you are constantly sweating at all times. But otherwise, it was a beautiful country. Got to go to the ocean. You know, for an Iowa guy or a Kansas guy, seeing the ocean, that's a big deal. That's pretty special. For you that live by the ocean, please enjoy what you got, because we definitely don't got that. For you people in Colorado that have mountains, enjoy that, because, again, we don't have that. We got cornfields. Yay!
Corn. We got rivers and stuff and lakes and ponds and ticks and mosquitoes, and it's good times.
Yeah, everybody enjoys that. Anyway, it was beautiful. Like I said, you're swimming in the ocean and you're looking straight up at mountains. That's it's amazing. And we were kind of spoiled. We had air conditioning, we had electricity. We had internet for like 2 days until everything went haywire, but we had full-time security with machetes guarding our place. That was kind of interesting. And the food, some of the best food I've ever had in my life. So great trip, loved it, but I'm also glad to be back. I kind of missed my little girl, and of course missed podcasting with you. You know, a week without a podcast, that's tough. You get used to this. This is part of my life now.
Absolutely.
But yeah, anyway, so it's good to be back and good to be talking Bronco football. We are about 3 weeks away from training camp kicking off. So starting to get revved up for another year of the Broncos, and a little more excited this year than I was last year for this team. And part of that is because we have a pretty interesting and unique core for the Broncos coming up. Now, like I said, 2015, they had all these veteran guys that have been in the league 10, 15 years or so. And the Broncos have moved on. I mean, Manning and Ware retired. Talib is now in L.A. Ward is not on a team right now. Trevathan, of course, is with the Bears. And DT is another year older. There was some talk that he might be moved on after this year. So we're kind of left with just a few of the older guys. Harris and Vaughn, even those guys are starting to get up there. I mean, it's crazy to say 28-year-olds are getting up there in age. When I'm older than that, but that's kind of where we are. So anyway, Broncos are moving to a younger core, and that's what they needed to do. And it's always a tough process when you go from that kind of veteran team to a young core. But we thought we'd go through 6 players we think are absolutely essential if the Broncos are going to get really back to that Super Bowl caliber team, to have that core guys that you can look back on and say, those are the guys that this team was built around. Those are the guys that led this team to Super Bowl victory. And the first one that we're going to start with, I think, is one that's very primed to have a big year this year, and that is Garrett Bowles, our left tackle. And I've heard some people still talking about, hey, maybe we should move him over there to right tackle. There's some weird talk going on. No, if you want to see Bowles succeed, I don't think you can move him over at this point. I think you would stunt his growth if you move him over to right tackle at this point, because that's learning a whole new position. For Garrett Bowles, this is a prime position. Even today in today's NFL, I know guards are getting paid more than ever, centers are getting paid more than ever, right tackles are getting paid more than ever. But would you still agree left tackle is still the most valuable position on the offensive line?
I would agree, and the dollars would back that up as well. I mean, in today's NFL, you probably need a more solid offensive line than just having an elite left tackle and having a bunch of guys at the other positions. But having a good tackle at the left side is a key to building a good offensive line. You can get away with a subpar left tackle if you're strong across the board, but I still think it starts with that left tackle spot. And Bowles, I agree with you. I think maybe eventually, if this year doesn't pan out, if he kind of stays where he's at, eventually he might be moved over to right tackle, but I think that would just really mess with his growth, his psyche, his demeanor. If you moved him over to right tackle this season, it would be like his rookie season all over again. So you got Veldheer there. I'm encouraged to hear both of them singing overtures about each other. So I am cautiously optimistic that Bowles is going to take a pretty big step forward this year and look much better. He's going to have to clean up those penalties. That's probably the biggest thing with him. Consistency in his pass blocking as well. We know he's got to put on some more weight, but his run blocking is probably top 20 of tackles in the NFL last year, I would say. So he's still, what is he, 25, 26? Drafted older, but offensive linemen have a later peak. So that's not so bad. And if Bowles hits, I mean, that's huge for the team. You still got him for another 3-4 years on that contract, depending if they use that 5th-year option. And to have a tackle that you can just pencil in as like, yep, that's the guy, it's huge. For the last, 10 years before Bowles, not even 10 years, 7 years, we had Ryan Clady, and that was really just a huge blessing for the Broncos to have one of the best tackles in football there, and you just didn't even have to worry about it. So Bowles, that's one of the main key building pieces of any NFL team is having a good tackle, because edge rushers those are game wreckers in today's NFL. And if Bowles can take a step forward, clean up those penalties, add weight, yada, yada, yeah, that'll be huge for the team. I still think he's probably – I would expect the 3rd year going to be a big one for him because of how raw he is as a player. But, I mean, Bowles has got to be a building block for this team, and rightfully so. I mean, he's a first-round pick at a prime position, so that is beyond important.
Yeah, the fact that Ryan Clady came on the scene and what did he give up, a half sack his rookie year or something like that?
His first 2 seasons were like massively incredible considering he played Boise State, and normally tackles take a little bit of time. I mean, he just came in and was like, yep, I'm going to be an all-pro player. Yeah. And so it was.
When he and Ryan Harris were both healthy, that was the best, I think, left tackle, right tackle combo the Broncos have ever had. I mean, it was
probably up there.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. And that was the year Jay Cutler, I think, threw for over 4,000 yards, and the offense was like 2nd in yards. It was a nice blessing to have, and something the Broncos haven't had since Clady started going down. And it's just been a rotation trying to find out who can start left tackle, who can start right tackle. And if Bowles can finally solve one of those issues for the next 5, 10, 15 years, that would be huge for the Broncos. So definitely a core piece that they need to pan out. And I think he's got from what I've seen, he's one of those guys that's going to work his tail off. I think he's put on some weight from what I understand. He's closer to about 310, 315 right now. So that's really good to hear, at least heading into training camp. And hopefully it hasn't zapped some of his athleticism. That's my biggest worry when guys put on that much weight. Just how athletic are they still going to be? But yeah, big second year for him, and huge for this offense really taking that next step. When you don't have to worry as a quarterback that somebody's going to come and hit you from behind, man, that's a huge blessing to have. And it'd be very nice for Case Keenum for sure. But moving on to our second guy here, and this is one I almost didn't include on the list just because maybe he's not even here after this season.
I would be shocked.
Yeah, I would be shocked too. But it's one of those – he's one of those guys that this is, again, another really big year for a guy. Really has to prove himself, prove that he is worthy of a big contract because it's such a prime position. We talked about left tackle being a prime position. I would say quarterback and pass rusher are the top 2, of course. Then I would say left tackle is probably that 3rd most important position. And then 4th, I would say, is cornerback. And that leads us to Bradley Roby, another first-round pick. Now, this is a guy that was instrumental in that 2015 defense being what it was. And, of course, the no-fly zone, when you have three cornerbacks that are starter quality, that is a very, very nice blessing to have. And then you throw in having Ware and Vaughn coming in as pass rushers. It's just a very tough combo to beat. But right now, Broncos have Harris. And, I mean, I don't think Roby's a big question mark. But still, he's got a little bit of question. Can he be that true top 10, top 15 cornerback that the Broncos are really used to having as that number 2 cornerback? And I guess here's my first question with him. Do you think the talk of him being in a competition with Tremaine Brock is real? Or do you just think that's a way of the coaches trying to motivate him?
Wasn't Garrett Bowles in competition with Tyson Brilo at this point last year?
That's a good point.
But
Bowles was a rookie, though.
Yeah, but this is Roby's first chance at the outside. And from what I've seen from Brock, that is from last season playing with the Vikings, there's no way that Roby would get beat out by him. I mean, Brock's a better slot than a boundary corner. So you're going to have to be playing with 3 slots or, 2 slots out there on the boundary. No way. That would be, unless Roby totally mailed it in this offseason and his looks horrible in camp or something. But I can't see it anything more than coach talk.
I'm with you. When I heard it first, I was like, oh my gosh, they're just trying to motivate him. I think he's one of those guys. This is where being in the second year of coaching for a lot of these guys, I think really this is where you see the big difference is they know how to motivate different players. They know which ones need to be encouraged. I think that's what you saw with Paxton Lynch this offseason, where the coaches were really talking him up, really trying to just say, hey, this guy, we still believe in him. We still have all blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. I think Roby is one that is motivated by competition. And that's just it. All of us are motivated by different things. My daughter, it's a great example this morning. She didn't want to wash her hands after going to the bathroom. And so my reaction was, I guess I'm going to wash my hands first. And then all of a sudden, boom, she's shoving me out of the way, running down the hallway to go wash her hands. She needs that competition to do things. I don't know. I haven't figured out a better way to motivate my daughter because I'm worried that I'm turning her into this ultra competitive kid that's like going to have to win at everything, every game in school. Otherwise, she's going to walk up and punch the guy that won it. But we'll see on that one. Anyway, but I think that's what they're learning here is how to motivate these guys and to keep them at their top position. And Roby, I just really think he thrives under that. So I'm with you. I can't see him getting beat. I think he's going to be I think he's going to have a good year. I really do. I don't think he's going to be an elite cornerback this year, but I'd say he's going to be in that top 20 group at least.
Yeah, I could see him there. He definitely has big shoes to fill. I mean, you're talking about Denver's expectations at cornerbacks beyond, Aqib Talib and Chris Harris, obviously, but not too long ago, Champ Bailey was stomping around back there in that secondary as cornerback 1. So Roby is definitely a building block. Cornerback's a huge spot, and he's still relatively young. So all things go well, he turns into a top 15, top 10 cornerback. In the next few seasons, the Broncos lock him up, and he's the face of the secondary 3 to 6 years from now still. That's ideally what happens. Who knows what's going to happen because, he could get injured. He might leave. If he has a bad year this year and he's asking for a lot of money because he's been a productive part of the no-fly zone, I could see Elway saying, you know what, we'll just we'll kick our tires in the draft and free agency because you're not worth that money. He's done it before. So
right.
We'll see. But I have high hopes for Roby, and he's one of the most important positions in today's NFL. Pass rushers, cornerbacks, tackles, and quarterbacks, not cornerbacks, quarterbacks. Those are the guys. So he's going to get paid. I think a lot of movement this year has been making Roby a guy that's going to lined up to get paid. I wouldn't be surprised if both Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas are gone next year and they allocate some of that money to pay for Bradley Roby because he's young and that's what you do. You want to lock up your young guys that are productive and then kind of transition to the older ones. And they brought in Deshaun Hamilton and Cortland Sutton. So that's a big thing. So I'm pretty excited about Roby, and I'm hoping that he takes a big step this year and makes fans more comfortable with moving on from Talib. Last year when we got rid of Ward, there was kind of no player that really could come in and fill in for him. I was excited about Justin Simmons, but that's safety. They both play safety, but they're not the same. They have a totally different skill set. So hopefully Roby can come in. He offers a little bit of the same with Talib. I don't think he has the ball skills that Talib has, but great recovery speed, good athlete. He just needs to get a little bit more consistent with his off-man coverage and his zone ability, but I think he can continue to improve there. Worst case, you got a good man corner, and that's what you need on the outside for Denver's game. So I'm excited about Roby going forward still. I think he's been one of the Denver Broncos' best first-round draft picks. I mean, outside of Von Miller in the John Elway era, probably Bradley Roby, right? I can't think of anybody else at the top of my head that's like, oh, yep, that was nailed it in the first round.
I'm trying to think because you can't count Derek Wolfe.
Nope, second round pick. Lynch, you got Shane Ray, you got Sylvester Williams, hopefully Bradley Chubb, but that's a little early for that. So I would say right now Roby's been Elway's second best first round pick.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
and so then a little bit on this note, because we've been getting a lot of Twitter questions about this. We have the supplemental draft coming up, and there's a couple of defensive backs, I guess you could say, that are big-time interests that a lot of people think are going to get drafted, and Sam Beal and Adonis Alexander. Do you think the Broncos do anything there to really bolster the secondary, or do you think now that they got Bradley Roby, Jermaine Brock, they used a couple draft picks, do you think they stay away from these guys? What do you think is going to happen there?
I think they'll be interested in both of them. Langley and Yiadom, while they're both young, they're unproven as heck. And both of these guys fit the Broncos what they need. I think Alexander, I probably wouldn't put anything besides like a 5th or 6th round pick on him for the compensatory draft, but supplemental draft, excuse me. But I really like Sam Beal. He's somebody who intrigued me watching Sam Darnold last year and watching Darius Phillips, who was a little bit more of the slot playmaker type. But Beal's long, athletic, physical, and I think he's a good fit for the Broncos scheme. I don't think I would use a 2nd round pick on him, but if the Broncos can get him with a 3rd round pick, because you got to play the numbers a little bit. The Broncos are the 5th overall pick, so as long as a team doesn't put a 2nd round pick on him, and who are the teams in front of the Broncos this year, the Browns, the Texans, the Giants, and the Colts don't put a 3rd round pick on him, the Broncos would get him. They'd have to give up a 3rd round pick next year, but hopefully that 3rd round pick is not the 5th overall 3rd round pick. And hopefully that just alleviates one of your needs. I thought Beal next year, I mean, there was some talk that he could be a top 40 pick because he's got that skill set that people are looking for in today's NFL, where he's athletic enough where he can stick with guys, but he's got the size, the length, the power, everything to be a press man on the outside and hold his own. So I would be totally fine putting a 3rd round pick on him. And that would, maybe not the best move for a guy like Brandon Langley and spending money on Tremaine Brock and all that, but you can never have enough good cornerbacks. And if you see a guy that you think can be a good fit for your scheme and can be on your team for the next 4 years, providing production at a discounted price, I'm all about it. So I really like Beal.
Right. Well, and like I said, if you can get a player that's a top 40 pick in the 3rd round at a very prime position, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
And if he actually pans out, you just continue with that. You could pay Roby and you're going to feel good about it, that you're still going to have 3 top-tier cornerbacks to play with. It just keeps that secondary as strong as can be and allows for Chubb and for Von Miller just to go destroy teams. I mean, it's as much as I want to see the offense improve, continuing to build that defense, and there's still young, good pieces on that defense that you can build around. And so you don't want to just all of a sudden go the opposite direction, because the Broncos have kind of done the pendulum swing. They built the Star Wars numbers offense, and it got them to the Super Bowl, but no further. Then they swung to the other side of having this all-star defense, and obviously it won them a Super Bowl. And so after that, I mean, I lean towards keeping the defense as strong as can be. And if this is one way to do it, then yeah, go ahead, give up that 3rd round pick. I think that's what I said on Twitter to a couple of our listeners, and I really wouldn't have no problem. I know you have to look at the background stuff because a lot of these guys, there's a reason that they're in the supplemental draft, that they didn't make it to the regular draft. So have to look into that. But talent-wise, Beal is definitely worth it. Definitely, yeah. Especially the way we play defense.
He's a perfect fit for the scheme we need, and cornerback, like edge rusher last year, is a sneaky need for the Broncos going forward. So if you can get a guy and alleviate that need going forward and create more young competition between Yiadom and Langley, that's huge. That just knock off another long-term need. You got to think about team building in like 3 to 5 year windows. So get another potential starting cornerback there, I'm about it in the third round. And that'd be the third year in a row the Broncos would use a third round pick on a cornerback.
But hey, like you said, if it keeps the no-fly zone, I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
And
speaking of the no-fly zone.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of the no-fly zone, this is the next guy. And I saw that you had posted on Twitter, you think this is one of the most underrated players in the NFL, and that is Justin Simmons, of course, the Broncos safety. And something that I just find so interesting, I like to see how teams build. That's what we do here. We see how teams build to championships, and then we try to have our team mimic that. And one of the great things of just looking at the greatest defenses in NFL history, you're looking at some of the top safeties in NFL history as well. You got Troy Polamalu with those great mid-2000s Steelers defenses, the 2008 defense that many say is one of the better ones out there. Ed Reed for the Ravens, that 2000, he's been amazing for them. Earl Thomas for that 2013 Seahawks defense. John Lynch, of course, with the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Donnie Shell was the safety for the Steelers during their crazy defenses of the 1970s. Of course, Ronnie Lott for the 49ers when they were so good. I mean, all these teams, they've had these great top 20, top 25 safeties of all time on their teams. And for the Broncos, I mean, Justin Simmons, you can't obviously put him with that group. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm just saying we need Simmons to become something great. We need him to become that core player in that defense and just be that guy that really mans that deep safety spot. And I guess here's my question for you to start off with. What do you think is Simmons' ceiling as a safety?
I think he has the potential to be a top 10 safety by the end of this season. I'm a big fan of Justin Simmons. It's not only the athleticism. He might be the most athletic player overall on the Broncos roster, and he looks like he's improved each and every year, but it's the mentality as well. I mean, hearing Justin Simmons speak, he is an extremely intelligent guy. Players around him just seem to rally around him as well, and I think he's a budding face not only of the secondary, but of the Broncos defense as well. And I'm stoked to have him on the Broncos. Normally, I wouldn't say a safety is as much a building block. I mean, you talked about it. Safeties are important, but I would argue, they're that next tier after pass rushers and cornerbacks that go with like off-ball linebackers as well. But still, defensive pieces, I'm all about keep building talented defenses and adding defensive pieces. I'm definitely a defensive-minded person when it comes to team building. So Simmons is a big one, and I was a big fan of him. He's probably the one guy that Elway has taken that I was like in love with before the draft. And when they took him, I was doing cartwheels. Adam Gotsis, I wasn't super big on. I was just like, oh, interesting. I was not big on Paxton Lynch when he was drafted, but Justin Simmons made me just feel a little bit better. I was actually in mock drafts and stuff. I was taking Justin Simmons in the second round. So I think Simmons can be big this year. They need to use him more. I'd like to see him using a Minkah Fitzpatrick kind of role where he's still a deep safety, but also they can come down and play some nickel as well. Keep him in the base package if they want to. And not so much playing that enforcer role, TJ Ward role, which I felt like sometimes they tried to use him there last year because Will Parks stunk so much there. And that's just not his game. That's not his play style. He's kind of a little bit more of a string bean, which he has pretty good hops, good range, and intelligence to boot. So I'm excited for what Justin Simmons will do this year. And I think with the added beef and talent up front, that Justin Simmons could really, and the addition of Cravens as well, who complements Simmons very well. I think this could be a big season for Simmons.
Right. I worry less about the Broncos getting beat over the middle because of Simmons and because of Cravens and just the growth I think that they can really have this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Both those guys are good, young, talented secondary members. And like we said, if the Broncos can add another cornerback and retain Roby, or if one of Yiadom or Langley step up, then this secondary looks good for at least the next 3 seasons, in my opinion, as long as people don't get hurt or Chris Harris doesn't fall off a cliff, which I don't think will happen.
Agreed. No, the very big piece, and I like all 3 of our guys. This is big seasons for all 3 guys that we've started off with here. They've shown glimpses. I'd say Simmons has proven it more consistently, at least last year. Bradley Roby had incredible games, but was also non-existent in a couple games. And of course, Garrett Bowles being his second year, but big years for these guys. If the Broncos are going to be successful this season, it's going to be in big part because these guys all take that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And the three we've listed will be big. And if these guys can take another step, and they can make the Broncos a great team once again, which obviously historically over the last at least 20 years, the Broncos have been 30 years, let's say. Broncos have been one of the best franchises in the NFL. Thank you, Mr. Bolin. Thank you, John Elway. But these guys got to step up, and if they do, if half these guys step up, then the Broncos have some core players and Pro Bowl caliber talents that is exactly what you need to be a consistent team competing in the NFL. All right, well, we still have a bit to get to, but before we do, let us tell you about why you need to become a Mile High Huddle VIP subscriber. Mile High Huddle's approach to covering the Broncos isn't just about reporting the news, although we pride ourselves in being able to relay you all the breaking news on the Broncos as it's happening in real time. But what we like to focus on is breaking down the Broncos from an in-depth perspective. From all 22 film reviews, X's and O's, deep dives on player evaluations, and coming out of the draft analysis of the 2018 class and the roster itself, we save our best and most in-depth content for our premium members, our VIP subscribers. To become a Mile High VIP and get access to 100% of our written analysis and the VIP Insider Forums, just click on the green banner at the top of the website, milehighhuddle.com. Click the monthly or annual option and you'll be locked in. From there, you get access to everything we produce, which includes any insider information we pick up along the way. We work hard to bring you the best Broncos coverage and analysis on the web. We ask you for your support to become a VIP subscriber. Pull the trigger and you have my word, you won't be disappointed. All right, well, the next two, we're very much on a defensive mindset here. We did 3-3, but we got a little defensive run here. And a guy that we've talked about, another first-round pick pretty recently, Bradley Chubb. And when you're a top 5 pick at an edge rusher position, obviously you are going to be a core player, and not only a core player for the roster, but him and Von Miller need to develop into a way that they are, you're seeing them back-to-back, smiling pictures, rotating, next coming up on Fox, the sitcom, the two Bash Brothers or something, Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, and become the face of the franchise. And that's what Chubb, and along with Von Miller, who obviously is the face of the franchise now, needs to become, given his pick and what the Broncos passed on in quarterbacks and just how important this position is.
Oh, definitely. Like you said, anytime you take a top 5 pick, you need them to pan out. You need them to become a core player that you're going to depend on for the next 5-10 years. Otherwise, you're going to be right there picking top 5 again. And for the Broncos, Bradley Chubb, Von Miller obviously is a core player. We'll talk about him here in just a minute. But at some point, they're going to need somebody to step up and be that Robin to his Batman. Kind of like, where was Batman? Von Miller was Robin. Honestly, Von Miller is probably more Batman, but of his actual play on the field. But again, just having that counterpoint, you need 2 great pass rushers anymore. Maybe 3 would be great, but 2 especially. You look at the Chargers right now with their 2 guys. They, I think, got the quickest pressure per snap in the NFL this past year. And that paid off. They didn't make it to the playoffs, but it's still that's something that they can build on for an entire defense. And you get a few more pieces around them, and all of a sudden you got yourself an elite defense that teams are very, very much afraid to play against. So Bradley Chubb has to become that core player. He has to become that next Von Miller for the Broncos, that guy that you just look at and say, he was why we won a championship. We can look at Von Miller and say, not only was he Super Bowl MVP, but you look at that playoff run, just what he did in those games. It was otherworldly. And he has just been the face of the franchise now that Manning and Ware are gone. And Chubb needs to become that next guy for us for sure. But and the great thing is you're hearing a lot of veterans speak very well of this kid. I think it was Chris Harris, if I remember right, said that he was looking a lot like Khalil Mack.
Yep, and Von Miller.
Yeah. Obviously, that should excite Bronco fans. But at the same time, I think there's a little bit of pumping your brakes on that. You're talking about 2 of the best pass rushers, probably the 2 best pass rushers in the NFL.
Edge rushers. I would argue Aaron Donald probably is up there as well. Just me personally.
You're right. Edge rushers. But still, it doesn't hurt to hear guys like Chris Harris talking like that. You have other guys that I think Wolf spoke very highly of him, if I remember right. Von Miller has spoken very highly of him. Just a lot of guys really like what they're seeing from him, all the work that he's putting in. And I've watched little clips. I mean, I'm sure many of you listeners have too on Twitter. And you can see the effort this guy's putting in. You can see just how hard he is working, just even in some few clips of this guy's flying off the snap. He's not wasting any time in OTAs or rookie minicamp or anything like that. He's taking advantage of every opportunity he has. And probably helps that he has DeMarcus Ware as his coach. I mean, that's a nice little bonus for these guys. But again, if the Broncos can have the best pass rushing duo in the NFL by the end of the season, they should be right there in the making for a playoff team.
Yeah, it's not enough just to have the best edge rushers. Last season, I would argue that the Chargers had the best edge rusher duo, but gosh, it helps. And if you can, Chargers are actually, we talked about them on here. They're a sneaky team this year. They shouldn't be, but they are. But yeah, that could be big for the Broncos. Hopefully they can surpass Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. And Joey Bosa is the guy who Bradley Chubb, I would say he's more of a comparison for Chubb than Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is more, he's powerful like Chubb, but Chubb is a bigger, more like powerful body type. But Khalil Mack plays 255, 260, and Chubb is playing like 275. So that's kind of closer to that Bosa range, a little bit more of that 4-3, 3-4 tweener type almost. And where Mack is more of a off-ball linebacker / defensive end type. But either way, powerful edge rusher that's very good with their hands. And some people have said, I've said potentially Griffin from the Vikings, and another one that I really like that some people have said is Terrell Suggs. So we'll see what happens. But Chubb, Von Miller, it's sad, but it's the way of life. Von Miller, he's still in his prime right now, obviously. But next 5 years, Von Miller will start to decline. And right. Bradley Chubb's going to have to be the guy that steps up, and we're going to hopefully have a smooth transition. And, maybe Chubb can become the Batman, maybe one day to Von Miller's Robin. We'll see what happens. But Chubb, this is a golden opportunity, and if he can live up to some of this praise that his teammates have given him and, the hype with his draft pick, which I'm excited about. I don't know if he's, an elite pass rusher, but I think he can be really, really good, like Pro Bowl level. So that's big. And when you have Von Miller across from him and DeMarcus Ware coaching him, that he could be a huge player and not only franchise cornerstone, but eventually the face of the franchise.
That is the dream. That is the dream. Well, and that brings us to our, we kind of already talked about him here a little bit, but of course you can't talk core players on the Broncos without Von Miller. For the next, like you said, 4 or 5 years, Von Miller is still the face of this franchise. He's a top 7 player in the NFL, I would say right now. And of course, he's at a premium position, so that helps out as well. But you already said it. Do you think 4 or 5 years, that's about what he's got left?
He's got more than that left, but I'm talking like elite level.
Well, yeah, sorry. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Because, even at the end, DeMarcus Ware was great, but he wasn't the player he was, the last or his peak during Dallas. He was an absolute game wrecker in Dallas. He came to Denver. He was good. Very much complimented Von Miller. They needed that across from him and the leadership, which is something that I think we don't talk about enough with Chubb. It's not just the play style. It's the mentality as well. He's a man. He's not some boy coming in here. He's a man. He's ready to work, which I absolutely love. They kind of need that after the Paxton Lynch years and some talk about even the 2017 class as well. So we'll see about that. But Von Miller, probably another 4 or 5 years left of really high elite level play. And then after that, you'll start to see him tail off a little bit. He's still going to be, I think he's got another 10 years of good football left, but I'm talking elite level. But still, we said it when Champ Bailey was here. We said it when I said it to my friends when Peyton was around, enjoy it while it's here because it is special to watch this guy and to have him play for even if he wasn't playing for the Broncos, it would be special to watch him. And the fact that you get to enjoy him on your favorite team and all the personality he brings as well. It's honestly, as a fan, you're a little bit blessed because he is incredible. He brought a Super Bowl to Denver, and there's just really nothing to dislike about Von Miller. He does everything. He's a fantastic pass rusher, obviously, probably the most explosive pass rusher in the NFL right now. His burst and bend off the edge are incredible, and he's really transformed his game, or just grown in his game, not transformed it, but grown in his game. And now he's one of the better run defenders as well. He doesn't do it with pure power, but he beats guys to spot. He's so powerful, and his speed to power, when he engages with guys, he can jolt them, get to spots that other guys could, offensive linemen scratching their heads. Like, how can I beat this guy? Because he's beating me to my spot every time. So he's incredible, the face of the franchise, and the best player in the AFC West right now. And he's on his way to the Hall of Fame as long as he doesn't do anything stupid. Just keep it up, don't get injured, and keep doing what you're doing. And Von Miller, I mean, not only Hall of Fame, but first ballot. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's at 83.5 sacks already?
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Smith just said that he thinks Von Miller could surpass his sack record. I'm not sure about that. We'll see. He's going to have to keep up a good pace for a long time if that's going to happen. In today's NFL, maybe, medicals are getting better and better. Guys can play longer. I mean, Tom Brady is going to play until what? He's 100 years old, so we'll see. But I mean, Peyton Manning, we brought him back from the dead essentially. He was a zombie playing for us, and he was pretty good. So we'll take it. But Von, I mean, he's incredible. I'd hate to be slobbing on the knob and singing so many overtures, but he's one of the best players that Von Miller and Champ Bailey, probably the best two singular talents I've seen playing for the Broncos. Peyton Manning was incredible, obviously, for the Broncos. I feel like he was a system. It's a little bit different with the quarterback, but Champ and Von, just jaw-dropping talent and athleticism for what they do. Yeah,
I can't argue with you there. We've definitely been spoiled to see two of the best players at their positions, and even Peyton Manning. I mean, like you said, it's a little bit of his system, but I mean, he designed it. So
yeah, he is the system.
Yeah, he is the system. And when you go and throw 55 touchdowns in a single season, that's something special to watch. We've been very, very blessed as Bronco fans to see some of the best football in NFL history from a lot of players. And Von Miller falls into there. Like I said, that playoff run that he had, I don't think you're going to see another pass rusher take over a game single-handedly like he did.
His game against the Patriots was one of the best edge rushing games I've ever seen in a big moment. I mean, not only did he have the sacks and the pressures, but he picked off Tom Brady. He intercepted the ball. I mean, just incredible. And then to cap it off with the strip sack of the Super Bowl, bringing home that hardware. Thank God they won that Super Bowl. Otherwise, it would have been just massively disappointing to have that team in 2012 not win, 2013 just get absolutely punched in the face by the Seahawks. So 2015, that was a redemption season, and Von Miller is the one who brought it home.
Yeah, I would say that strip sack for a touchdown was absolutely the reason the Broncos won that game. Getting that 10-0 lead on a team that's very much based on the run setting up the pass, all of a sudden they're kind of forced to have to rethink their game plan. It's kind of like 2013 when the Broncos got punched in the mouth early in that Super Bowl, and they just never really recovered. Yep. They never really went back to the run game, and it just, we don't need to talk about that. But
it's kind of like a boxer. Sorry, we do need to talk about it because I just had an analogy. It's kind of like a fight where you can have two guys that are pretty evenly matched, but if one of them gets in a good punch early, the fight could be over. I mean, that's just, if you get punched, you could be the best fighter ever, but if that guy gets one good square shot against you in the head, you are in trouble. Right. And that's what happened.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a huge, huge touchdown. And you could kind of see just the Panthers after that. It took them a while to really recover. That second half, they started looking a little bit better, but still, it was a little too late at that point, which is great for the Broncos. But yeah, Von Miller, he's going to go down as one of the all-time greats for the Broncos for sure. It would not shock me if by the end of his career, he is top 2, top 3 easily. Of course, John Elway's always going to be at the top. I think Von Miller would have to win the Broncos 3 or 4 more Super Bowls to pass him. Even there, because John Elway would be the executive during that stretch, you'd probably still have John Elway at the top because he's the one that helped design the teams. But yeah, enjoy him while you got him, Bronco fans, because it's amazing how quick careers go.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, Von Miller could have an injury tomorrow. God damn it. Everybody knock on wood right now. Everyone listening, knock on wood. But
there you go.
You never know. It's the NFL. Things can change in an instant.
That they can. All right, well, let's talk about our last guy here. And this is another rookie. And I kind of went back and forth, again, just whether to put this guy on here. But it's in part because the Broncos are going to be losing 2 key guys from this position over the next probably year or 2.
Probably both next year from the sounds of it, but you never know. Things could change. Right.
But especially if this guy emerges, it makes it a lot easier to move on. And that is Courtland Sutton. And I mean, the reviews of this kid, players have just been raving about him. People that have been at practice have been raving about this guy and the catches that he's making, which honestly makes me hesitate a little bit because
Cody Latimer.
Cody Latimer. How many times did we hear that that's what he did during OTAs and then nothing?
Yeah.
But I think Courtland Sutton's a little bit different guy. Cody Latimer was kind of a knucklehead. He could make the really, really good catches, but he never really learned the offense. He can never really be trusted to be on the field and make the right decision. And he wasn't. Honestly, he was just the worst fit possible with Peyton Manning.
Yeah,
that was a big
great route runner, and he also doesn't really. I mean, he's for as physical as he is, he doesn't really attack the football / have the ability to play the ball in the air that Sutton does. He doesn't play above the rim.
Right. But again, we've just been hearing great things about this kid, hearing that he's really showing well as a route runner even. Just that it's amazing to hear what's going on with this kid. And I feel bad because I'm supposed to be the wide receiver guy. And I was the one going, please don't draft Courtland Sutton. And now we got him. But I mean, it was a lot of it dealt for me was just one, I questioned a little bit of his athleticism. And two, I questioned just with that route running, how quickly he could be an impact player for the Broncos. Plus, I thought he was going to go in the first round. So getting him in the second is a little bit different thing than get him mid first or whatever. I mean, a lot of people thought Dallas was going to take this kid, and obviously they didn't. So I feel a lot better about where the Broncos took him. I feel better about him being on the team, especially when I'm hearing a lot of really good things about this kid. And it's hard to know just the work ethic that a kid's going to have. It's you can't see that on tape. I mean, you can see the improvement from one year to the next kind of thing. Okay, yeah, they put a lot of work into it, but it's still a whole different game when you get to the NFL. But for the Broncos, if this guy can emerge as a core piece for that offense and just somebody that teams have to focus on. When DT was in his prime, that's what you hope Courtland Sutton can be, because teams always had to keep a safety towards his side. Teams always had to worry that he was either going to beat him deep or he was going to catch that screen pass, take it 80 yards, quick slant play like in 2011 against the Steelers. I mean, that is playmaking ability. And when you got that kind of player, teams absolutely have to fear that kind of player. It's kind of like Odell Beckham Jr. for the Giants. It opens up everything for everybody else. And like I said, if you're losing DT, you're losing Sanders, you're just losing a lot of playmaking ability. You're losing a lot of guys that bring fear to the rest of the defense. And I question this a little bit because as much as I love wide receivers, how important is the position? I mean, they are getting paid ridiculous contracts right now. And I just sit here and say, I wouldn't pay a wide receiver that, honestly. I don't know. I as much as I love wide receivers, I still think it's not the most important position. I don't think they're deserving the contracts that they're getting. But again, if you have that playmaker player, it definitely makes a huge difference for your offense.
I can't disagree, and especially when they're on that rookie contract, that's a big difference for them, not getting paid that crazy money like what Sammy Watkins is getting paid right now. Granted, you can afford to do that when you have a potential franchise quarterback on a rookie deal. So that's, we've talked about that on here before a lot. We had a couple different guys we talked about here, potentially Cravens, potentially Josie Jewell, but I'm glad you went with Sutton, and it's just to do with the guys in front of him as well. You talked about it, Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, both over 30, both have contracts that indicate that one or both will be gone after the season. So Sutton's going to have to step up and fill in the role. And I was not as big on him coming into the draft because, again, I thought, first round talent. I had him actually exactly as the 40th overall player on my board. So that's, I think, didn't he go like 38 or I feel like he went in the exact same spot as where I had him on my big board. So it turned out in the end, we got exact value. So I'll take that. But Sutton, I agree with you. Wide receivers, important, especially with more and more 3 wide receiver sets in today's NFL. You have to have guys that can pull coverage and everything. It is a scheme and quarterback dependent position, but obviously if you have a good talent on the outside, it makes the scheme and the quarterback that much better. I mean, look at the difference between not having Demaryius Thomas to having when he's been hurt to having Demaryius Thomas. It's night and day for the offense. So I'm with you as wide receiver, not as important, but I think you are definitely justified in putting him as one of the key building blocks for this team going forward, especially because he's young and the guys in front of him might not be here long. We'll see if he can fill in. I do have a little bit of Cody Latimer hesitancy when they talk about how good he's playing in camp. Same with Deshaun Hamilton. But I feel like Sutton is a guy that, worst case, he's going to end up a solid number 2 receiver in the NFL, kind of what Eric Decker was, or maybe, best case, the Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall type. But I could see him as a number 2 and maybe developing into number 1. He doesn't really have the long speed that you see from most number 1s, but he has the ability to go up and get the football, good change of direction ability. So there's some skills there that could indicate that. Brandon Marshall didn't have great long speed either. So we'll see, and if he can hit, that's going to be huge for the team. All right, well, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Building the Broncos. We talked about the building blocks for this team, the core players going forward: Garrett Bowles, Bradley Roby, Justin Simmons, Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, who, despite being the oldest one on the list, is still a building block piece because he's that good, and Cortland Sutton. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you head on over to Mile High Huddle, a new affiliate of 24/7 Sports and CBS Sports Digital, to find ours and our co-writers' articles, not just related to the draft, but all things that pertain to your Denver Broncos. Head on over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and comment. Your support can help us continue to bring you our Denver Bronco deep dives. We aren't just here to bring you the news, but an in-depth analysis each and every week of the Denver Broncos. You can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all of our great audio content by subscribing to us on the Huddle Up podcast on iTunes, and for Android users, Stitcher, as well as check us out on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at Huddle Up Pod. Again, please be sure to subscribe and rate us and reach out to us, as we love interacting with fellow Bronco fans. For Carl Dumler, I'm Nick Kendell, wrapping up another episode of Building the Broncos. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next week. Go Broncos.
Mile High Huddle.